just hopping on right now. Let's see. Boop, boop, boop. How's everyone doing today? Let's see. Know anything about AppFolio? Let me see. It sounds familiar. Oh yes, their property management software. So I haven't been, in that space. My experience has been in cybersecurity, and cloud for the most part. But I know they are a market leader and they're publicly traded, which is great. So that means the stock that you'll get, you can actually cash out versus having to wait for them to go public. How can a marketing professional transition into sales? The easiest way for sure is to try to do an internal transfer. So, work closely with the sales team, sales manager, indicate that you would like to internally transfer within the role. That's definitely gonna be the easiest because when you're applying for like external roles, they're looking for that closing experience. Do I know anything about Maven Link? Let me see. I can look them up on RepView. So yeah, they're like a timeline project management type software. What's the other company that you're looking at? So let's see. I can look on RepView here. If you're not already on RepView, they have tech sales organization ratings, and I think Maven Link is on there. Let's see. No, actually, they're not on there. But I can reach out to my network, see if anyone knows there. How hard is it to sell cloud? It's relatively difficult, mainly because cloud is just so big. Like, for example, at Amazon Web Services, there's 160 plus services right now. So there's just so many different angles that you can take. Customers are pretty much past like those very basic, what is the cloud type conversations. And instead you're looking at like creating very specific solutions for them. So there's a bit of a ramp, but you do have very big like support teams that help you. You're not like going into these accounts alone. You'll have sales specialists, sales engineers, technical account managers that'll help you out. What do I think about channel sales? Channel sales is really important. So channel sales, that would be selling through resellers instead of selling directly to the end customers or end companies. So a lot of the big companies, for example, they focus quite a bit on selling through channels because what that does, it allows you to kind of outsource your selling. A lot of like these resellers already have relationships with like big companies and they're actively selling the products that they have. So since they already have a relationship, it's easier for them to get into those accounts. Do I know anything about selling at TikTok? Yeah, there's a couple places that you can sell within TikTok. So on the TikTok side, they're selling within the ads team. I know a few people there. Within the corporate side, ByteDance, they have a few enterprise applications. So there's that piece too. They're definitely a fast growing company. The only thing that kind of concerns me with TikTok and a lot of like actually the Chinese companies is there's a lot of politics going on right now over there in terms of the government is clamping down on big tech companies. That would be my only concern there. Application sales teams or hardware sales teams. I prefer applications. I used to sell hardware. I think just within like the software side, there's just more room to grow. Plaid, no, I don't have a Plaid. I have the long range right now. I might get the Plaid Model X, but it's like 6 months out or something. And but I do have an order for like the tri-motor Cybertruck. That's actually what I'm looking to replace, the Model X. Can I do a video on the day in the life of being an SDR, AE, all the roles? Yeah, actually, because I had someone ask me to do in the day in the life, but my day in the life is definitely very different right now as like a senior account manager, managing just 2 large accounts versus when I was an SDR. So that's a great idea to do like a day in the life for those different roles. I just took a screenshot of that comment so I'll go ahead and use that as an idea. Have I ever heard of Aviatrix, no. So that's the thing. There's like so many tech startups right now. Let's see. Multi-cloud platform. Is your network ready for multi-cloud? I'd have to look into it in more depth. If you want me to like give you my analysis in terms of like looking at like the overall company and the products, send me a DM. I'll take a look and give you my thoughts there. Do you think you could switch from a BD project management role in creative agency to tech? Yeah, project management skills, those actually transfer, I think, very well to tech sales, or even like just in tech in general. Project management is huge within tech, so a lot of different roles that you can apply for, like being a technical account manager, customer success manager. Oh, oops, I lost my background, guys. Just a second. I don't know why it went away. Okay. What are some companies you would suggest? Should you just look at RepView? Yeah, I would say RepView is great just to look at like the top companies, because sometimes what will happen is a company can be great for engineers, but not necessarily great for sales teams. That was actually my experience when I joined Google earlier. They had all their focus was pretty much on the engineering and product side. The sales team was still struggling to catch up. It's different now that they have a different CEO that came from Oracle. But definitely very important, because then you'll be able to, like RepView, they give you pretty great breakdowns in terms of like attrition rates. They have data in terms of like what's the sales stack, or what types of tools and support do the sales teams have, which is great. Percentage of reps hitting quota. Those are all important too. Tom, no tech background, difficult to get into tech sales. Sales is almost always connections. No. Yeah, you don't need a tech background to get in, for sure. A lot of the people that I know in tech sales, they have like non-engineering, non-technical backgrounds. A technical background definitely can help, especially if you want to go into like some of the more technical roles like sales engineering, but definitely not needed. And then in terms of like always being connections, I would say the first job is the hardest to get. If you have referrals, like it can help. But once you get like, I would say 2 years of experience under your belt and you have your LinkedIn updated, you're just going to get constant people reaching out on recruiters reaching out for new positions. Like I think for me, it's like at least one position a day that's proposed to me. Looks like I'm losing. Is anything glitching out on you guys? Oops, I think it's lagging a little bit. Hold on, guys. Or maybe I just got a bunch of people that popped up. Let's see. Scrolling. Okay. Is there much more money in tech sales versus medical device sales? I think so. I think, it's easier to blow out your quota in software sales because you can have very big deals with like low volume, and just like the deal sizes are much larger. I think medical device sales, I think it was better like 10 or 20 years ago, but now there's just a lot more regulations and stuff. Okay, I'm gonna get to all the questions, guys. So if there's a little lag, I think that's what was happening here. Saw some BDR roles at IBM. Yeah, IBM hires a lot of BDRs. They do a lot of BDR hiring because they hire from within for promotions, which is great. That's kind of what you want to look for. What do I think about Adobe SDR positions? Adobe's solid company. So if you get an offer for Adobe for SDR, I wouldn't hesitate it. You hate your tech job right now, you want to switch. Yeah, sometimes it's like you get a bad manager. The bad manager can kind of make or break your experience. Any advice, chem degree, you want to get into something related with sales? Yeah, I would say when I look at like what jobs I wanted to go into, one of the things I looked at was how big is the market in terms of other companies and other positions. So I'm of the opinion that you should kind of go for the skills that are most marketable, so that way you're not just like stuck within a specific company or a specific industry. And that's what I started to realize in my first corporate role. I was in like the hardware sales space, and there was only really like 2 competitors. And what it meant is it kind of limited my marketability, versus like in software sales, it basically translated over to any software company. What are my thoughts on DocuSign? DocuSign's great. They're killing it. Crazy growth, good company, good leadership. Doesn't matter if you didn't go to Target School, Ivy. Nope, I went to a state school, University of Illinois. I got headhunted by Google. I'm at Amazon Web Services right now. So definitely high level positions, and then, definitely don't need to be at an Ivy. HubSpot or pure B2B? I prefer HubSpot. Can you work a normal job career and have this as a side job to start? You can. I would say not really for a full-time job, but let's say if you wanted to transition into it, if you did a program like Pre-Hired, and that one's linked in my bio, it's like an 8 to 12 week part-time boot camp that you don't pay anything up front until you land a tech sales job. They teach you all the basics. They do coaching, mentoring, interview prep, resume prep. And that one is actually designed that you can do it while you're still working at your normal job before you fully commit into it. How often am I on Blind? I used to be on it a lot more often, especially when I wasn't making as much, and I was always impressed about like the really high compensation packages that everyone had on there. Now I'm not on it so often. I would say try not to be on there too often because it can get kind of depressing if you are kind of like stuck in stuff. But SDR certification on Coursera, SV Academy, worth it? Yeah, SV Academy is solid. Are these lives recorded? They are recorded. All right, I'm gonna commit. Tonight is when I'm gonna upload my prior TikTok lives, including this one. So in my bio, I have my YouTube. I haven't changed the title yet from Tom's Tesla Garage to TechSalesTom, but I will post it tonight. I'm going to do that there. How's my relationship with my LDR? We have I'm not actually very close with our lead LDR or lead demand rep. We within like my specific team, we have one that kind of covers multiple accounts, but I'm not doing so much like cold prospecting into my accounts anymore, so not necessarily using them too much. Is SDR, BDR the only names for entry-level jobs, or can they be different names based on company? Yeah, they could be different names. Sometimes it could be like associate account representative, but for the most part, it'll be sales development representative or business development representative. View on construction tech companies. I'm bullish. I think construction tech is like an industry that's kind of ripe for disruption. So if you can get at one of like the leading companies, you could definitely, have the chance to be on a rocket ship in terms of being able to blow out your quota, being able to ride the wave for increasing valuations of the company for options. What certs are best for sales, engineering, cloud? I would say the gold standard would be the AWS cloud, professional cloud architect certification. And there's also the associate, but you want to get that professional one. That would be, I would say, definitely the best. Is IBM really hiring that many roles? And if so, why? Yeah, they're trying to catch up. They were a little late to the cloud. They're recruiting like crazy into their cloud organization. So that's why you see all those openings. They've tried to hire me a few times, but that's why they're hiring so much. Are most of your leads inbound in tech sales, or do you have to cold call and find on your own? It can vary. It depends on the company. But usually there is like a mix of inbound leads that you're getting from marketing, from people that went on the website, put in an inquiry, and then you're also going to have like a list of accounts that you haven't interacted with before, and that's your job to kind of go on LinkedIn, go on Discover.org, find out who those key contacts are, and try to break in. Thoughts on Proofpoint? Proofpoint's solid. Who would I recommend for ag tech sales? I'm not familiar with ag tech, so but if you message me, I can look it up. What was my quota for Q3 and how many deals did I close? So I have a yearly quota. I mean, we get quarterly quotas, but in cloud it's pretty much you have a yearly quota number. So my quota for the year is it's like 78 million. And then I'm actually going to come in at about 140% for the year. So that's actually going to be a good year for me. So I think at the end of Q3, I basically coming in right at 100% of quota, and the rest is after that. You're in high school right now working at Amazon, Fulfillment Center, and college not on my plan. How do you start? Oh, that's awesome. So if you're already at Amazon and the Fulfillment Center, you're in I think the perfect place. They have so much... They have a lot of programs for doing internal hires and internal mobility. So I forgot what the name of the program is, but if you go on inside.amazon.com, they recently changed their like the education reimbursement. So if you do want to take classes on the side, for example, it's covered 100% if you're within fulfillment centers or hourly. So I would try to do that internal path. Is Amazon SDRs actually bringing in 120K? Yeah, pretty close. It depends on the level. Is there technical training available? Yes. Pre-Sales Academy has a great technical training program. That one's in my bio. What are qualities, traits, habits that separate top performers from everyone else? I think the biggest ones from on the sales side, the biggest traits would be curiosity, willingness to learn, competitive nature, money driven, great time management skills, and great relationship building skills. I think, but I think most importantly, it's really consistency. That's really what separates top performers from everyone else. If you're the type of person who kind of puts things off until the end of the quarter, it's going to be hard for you to like blow out your number, versus if you're able to work backwards from your quota, figure out how much activity do you need to do on a daily basis. And if you could like break it down into that level, like for example, figure out what's your opportunity win rate, what's the conversion of leads to opportunities, conversion of prospecting emails to leads generated, and so on. And then if you could just work that down into the specific number of activity you need to do on a daily basis, and you commit to that, you'll definitely be a top performer. Company says accelerators are fast track to promotion. Isn't it additional income after OT? Yeah, so accelerators, what that is once you hit 100% of your quota, you start to earn commission at a higher rate. So if, like, for example, if your on target commission is $40,000, if you hit 100% of your goal, they'll have different accelerators. So it could be like a 2x accelerator. So if it's a 2x accelerator, if you double your quota, that next portion of your quota, you end up earning double what your on target commission was. So if you double your quota, you go from earning $40,000 in commission to $120,000, if that makes sense. And then the larger your quota, typically the bigger the accelerators. Like I have like 10x accelerators. So how much do you think is too much of those percentage of courses that teach you tech sales? I would say, if it's like 15, 20%, but I think like pre-hired is like 12%, which, in all honesty, I think it's not that bad when you compare how much you would pay to take like a year of college classes or two, and then you pay that up front without even a guarantee of having a job. So can you transfer from software engineer with 8 years of experience to sales engineer? Yeah, software engineering experience is very applicable to sales engineering, especially if you're going to be at a company where the product is more technical. In tech sales today, however, looking to get higher pay and comp, what do I suggest for companies? Yeah, I suggest looking at RepView. So I'll pull that up again. I have a few videos in terms of like what are the top paying tech companies, but it's going to be, the biggest ones for consistent numbers are going to be like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and then there's also like a bunch of other smaller companies and startups too. What are my thoughts on working 2 full-time jobs? If you can do it and not get caught, most companies will have something within your employee handbook about like moonlighting. For example, in Amazon, they say, you can't do a second job if it directly competes with Amazon or your job or interferes with your job. So be very careful. I wouldn't necessarily advertise it on your LinkedIn at like whatever your second job is, but and it can be hard to manage. Yeah, sorry guys, the background went away, but it popped back up. Best internship program company for undergrads. I would say go for like the bigger public companies for internships. I would typically stay away from small startups for internships. You're having trouble getting meetings, what do I recommend? I recommend, work with your teammates. I know it's kind of hard to collaborate right now when everyone's remote, but work with your team, see if you can, get like their email templates, get advice and collect feedback in terms of what worked well for them. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, do a bunch of A/B testing yourself. My best experience has been working with like the more senior reps, figuring out what worked well with them, and then taking that and adapting and working off of it. Can you walk straight into an inside sales role out of college, or is it SDR to inside sales? Yeah, you pretty much have to go from sales dev first to inside sales. And the comp for inside sales, your base will be pretty close to the same, maybe a little bit more, but then the biggest difference is like your commission rate should go up. How about infrastructure as a service cloud sales? Yeah, that would be, there's a few companies there. I mean, it kind of depends on the company, but the big company like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they kind of fall into that. They do both platform as a service and infrastructure as a service and SaaS. You're in tech sales and our quota is insane. Literally 10% of the office at quota. Yeah, if only 10% of your team is hitting quota, that's kind of a problem. And RepView actually has data on that. Sorry guys, the background keeps on going out. I'm not sure if it's like laggy on my phone. I even like upgraded to like the iPhone 13. So I'm not sure why it's getting stuck there. Cybersecurity sales, yes. I was in cybersecurity at one of the first startups that I was at. Great company, or great industry, lots of growth there. If you have to go to college, what's the best degree for tech sales? If you have to go to college, I almost always recommend do computer science, even if you don't want to be a developer. It's really the gold standard degree in like the tech industry. It's just going to open up so many doors for you. You definitely don't need to do computer science, but it can allow you, for example, to be a product manager, a technical account manager, or even just like in tech sales or sales engineering. So if you have to go to college, I would do that. Going from recruiting to tech sales, I've seen people do that. How's my work-life balance? SDR life feels like sourcing never ends. Yeah, so SDR, the entry-level role, is definitely a bit of a grind. It gets better as you move up. That's why I always tell people who are just starting off, think of the role as like a stepping stone, or it's almost like a paid internship, basically. It's not meant to be a role that you're going to be in for like 4 or 5 years. Make it a goal to get promoted out of that role like in about like that 1 to 2 year mark. If you stay much longer than 2 years, a lot of people end up getting burned out just because the role can be a lot of repetition. Is it hard to transfer from within Amazon to AWS? How long would it take? Any idea? It's not super hard, but I think the normal process is it would take 6 months to 12 months. It depends on your prior experience. How much do you need to learn to qualify for that role? But they have a formal internal transfer process, and then set up time with like the hiring manager for the team that you'd be interested in, build out an action plan with your manager in terms of what do you need to do to demonstrate competence, and then they'll support you there. What does OTE mean? OTE means on target earnings. So that's like typically what you'll hear when tech salespeople talk about how much they're getting paid. And what that is, it's a combination of your base salary plus how much commission you would earn if you hit 100% of your commission or of your quota or your sales target. How much are the boot camps on average? So a lot of them, what they do now is they do income share agreements, or you do payments after you get a job, so you're not really paying up front. So with like pre-hired, for example, they don't charge anything up front, and then you pay 12%, I think, once you make 70,000 or more a year in your entry-level role, which is pretty typical. The entry-level roles will pay between like 60 and 90,000. Titles to look for when trying to break into Microsoft AWS. It depends what specific roles. Like within AWS, there's so many different roles within the tech sales organization. You've got account managers, account representatives, you've got sales specialists, you've got solutions architects, technical account managers, customer success managers. There's just a really big variety, so it kind of depends on what kind of day-to-day you're looking for. 2-year degree, 3 years of sales experience. How much of an entry barrier is not having a BS? I would say nowadays, not having a degree is not a very big barrier of entry. Most of the big tech companies, they got rid of their degree requirements. It's more so based on your skills and competence. And for like the entry-level roles, like sales development representative, they're designed pretty much for people with no outside experience. They don't have college degrees specifically for that. You learn everything on the job. Does software compliance roles translate well into the sales side of things? I think there's a lot of the corporate roles other than, will kind of transfer over into the sales sides of things, especially I think on compliance, right? You're still kind of understanding processes. working with different teams. There is like a time management aspect there. Top 3 companies to aim for as an undergrad. I would say Amazon, Microsoft, Google. When you're looking at entry-level roles or people early in their career, I always recommend like the bigger companies, just because what you're looking for in those early roles is building your foundational sales skills. So that way, if you do decide you want to go to a startup, a lot of times when you go to a startup, they have very little sales training or enablement, and you're kind of expected to come in and hit the ground running. So focus early on in your career on medium to larger companies that have larger sales teams, sales training programs. Build those skills first. Let's see. Healthcare. Oh, here we go. The sound glitched. Yeah, it was kind of glitching. Oops. Sorry, guys. This is weird. I think what I'm going to do is, if I didn't get to your question, just type it in the chat again, because I think like when I'm like scrolling through this, it like kind of messes things up. I don't know what's going on with TikTok today. What are the best steps to transition from SDR to AE? Great question. Best step would be work very closely with your SDR manager. Ask them, tell them that you want to get promoted to an AE. Not every SDR wants to get promoted to AE or account executive. So tell them that you want to get promoted. Ask them, what do you need to do and demonstrate to show that you'd be ready to get promoted? Get the very specific numbers, and then use those numbers and figures and skills that you need to build, and have at least monthly career-focused conversations with your manager. And then also set a goal in terms of when you want to get promoted. So it could be 12 months, it could be 18 months, and then hold them to that. Can you talk about cloud sales? Yeah, I can definitely talk about cloud sales. I'm at Amazon Web Services now. I was at Google Cloud. Are sales engineers and solutions architects similar? They are similar. So sometimes in companies they'll interchange those titles. At Google, for example, they actually had sales engineers and solutions architects as separate roles. Sales engineers were more on the direct sales team. They received a commission. Solutions architects were on the engineering ladder, more technical. They weren't dedicated to individual accounts, and they were on a bonus instead of a commission. What certs do you need? Not too many. It depends on the industry that you're looking to get into. Like if you want to get into cloud, I recommend for like the entry-level folks, get the cloud AWS Cloud Practitioner certification. That one's a good one. It's pretty easy to get. Attending an M7 MBA next fall. Best role to target, no sales experience. Yeah, so I would say with the MBA experience, if you want to be on the sales side, you're going to be targeting like inside sales representative roles. A lot of like the big tech companies, like within the cloud organizations, for example, they do have specific internships for MBAs. So make sure you go for those. Best skills. Yeah, can I pull up the thing again? Yeah, let me see. It keeps on turning it off. Hopefully they don't turn it off again. Best skill to improve to move from SE to AE. I think the best skill is just building out your sales acumen. I think sometimes as a sales engineer, it's easy to get kind of focused on like a lot of the technical details. So try to get more involved with like building relationships within the account, get more involved on the opportunity management side. Good question. How much does an account rep at Amazon make? So this is like the entry-level role. The entry-level role, you're making about like I would say 100 to 128,000 OTE. At the enterprise level, which I'm at, it's between like 250 and 350. Like for example, this year, because I'm really hitting my quota, probably going to close at close to 500, which is not too crazy within this space. And what if AE isn't open? Do you look somewhere else? Yeah, if you don't see specific AE openings, you could still, you could actually still try reaching out to the sales manager or the chief revenue officer. There's always like a demand for sales reps. So even if they don't have a specific opening right now, they do headcount planning, several months or quarters in advance. So they might not have an opening now, but they could have insight into what might be coming down the pipeline in like the next month or two. So still good to reach out. Best companies for people starting their sales career fresh out of college. Yeah, best companies would be medium to large enterprises, I would say, just because what you want to focus on are companies that have well-developed sales teams, that have good sales processes, so that way you can learn what the best practices are and then get some good sales training too. For interviews for SDR, what pay expectations should we give? I usually shy away from giving pay expectations up front. For an SDR, it's going to be between 60 and 90,000 for the most part. There isn't too much variation there, depending on location. What's the biggest difference between sales engineer and AE? So the difference between sales engineer and AE, so the sales engineer, they're the technical counterpart of the account executive. You can kind of think of the account executive as like the quarterback on the football team. They're tying everything together. They're ultimately responsible for the team and deciding like what's going to be the overall strategy. The sales engineer is very focused on the technical aspects of the sale. So when you're selling software, it's very different than selling a car, for example, where you're only dealing with one person and it's like a relatively quick transaction. Software sales can take months or longer to finish. Most of the time, customers are not going to believe everything that you have on your product website. For example, they want to see it firsthand, make sure that it works, make sure that it actually meets their requirements. So you do a proof of concept or a trial, and that's what the sales engineer is responsible for. They're responsible for talking to the engineers, knowing the product very well at a technical level, being able to escalate to the engineers if they need to, and then running those proof of concepts and pilots, and then doing demos. How much experience do you need for Amazon Solutions Architect? I would say if you want to get in as a Solutions Architect, you definitely need, it helps to, I would say, have at least 1 to 2 years of prior experience, but I have seen them hire people that with no prior cloud sales engineering experience if you have the AWS Professional Cloud Architect certification. So make sure you get that if you do want to move into an Amazon Solutions Architect role. Typical education requirements for these roles. Typically, there's none. It's one of those. This is one of those career paths where it's all based about your prior work experience. And the entry level roles don't require specific experience. The SDR, BDR role, many of them will hire people with no prior experience because you're learning everything on the job. And then past that, your qualifications are dependent on your prior achievements. So how did you do as an SDR or BDR? What has been your career progression? So typically you will move up internally from an SDR, BDR to an inside sales role or an SMB account executive. And then depending on your performance there, that's pretty much what qualifies you for these higher level positions. What's the difference in skills between SMB, mid-market, and enterprise? The biggest skill difference is at the enterprise level. It's going to be more strategic. There's a lot more emphasis on building relationships within the customer and within the account. The deals will be more complex. There'll be more stakeholders. That's just at a high level. BDR with proof point. Do you think you should use your GI military bill earned college to move up higher? If you have, with your GI bill, and thank you for your service, definitely take advantage of it. Do I offer one-on-one sales coaching, mentorship opportunities? I don't do specific mentoring. I mean, I do have one-on-one calls that you can book in my bio, but I don't really do too many of those. Feel free to DM me questions, specific questions. Happy to do those. I just don't have the capacity to do mentorship at this time. If you want a really kind of guided process into getting into these entry level roles, that's where I really recommend pre-hired or pre-sales academy, because that's essentially what they offer. They're mentoring you over the 8 weeks or 10 weeks or so to get into these entry level roles or to get into the sales engineer roles. Coming from outside tech, what's the best cert for Salesforce AE? Project manager cloud. The cloud certification can help, but outside of that, I don't think the certifications are too important for Salesforce. Thanks for the help. Yeah, happy to help. 1 year of actuary experience looking to switch to tech sales, but worry about losing work-life balance. I mean, the work-life balance is great in tech sales. Most people are working, 40 hours a week, potentially 50 hours a week. But a big thing is like your work hours are pretty much limited by your customers' hours. And most people, most of the engineers, for example, and the people you'd be selling to, they're working 9 to 5. So you're kind of limited to that. There isn't really too much that you can do outside of hours. What's the typical deal cycle length? It depends on the segment. So, and depends on the company and the product. It can vary a lot. For some products, they can be more transactional. Deal sizes could be in like the $20,000 to $50,000 range and could take, let's say an average deal cycle of like a month. And then at the other end, like for example, at like the fintech startup that I was at, our deal cycles, I think on average were like 6 to 7 months, and the average deal size was $300K. And then within the cloud enterprise space, for me, deal sizes are in the 7 figures and can take, 6 to 12 months or so. Is SaaS sales more profitable than infrastructure as a service and platform as a service in terms of exceeding quota? So that's interesting. So like the bigger companies that do infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, typically like the quotas are more fine-tuned. So it is a little bit harder to out-earn your quotas. If you can get to a fast-growing SaaS startup, that's where you're going to see like the biggest potential for like really blowing out your quota and exceeding targets. Will my finance sales skills count if you transition to tech sales? Yes, if you can talk numbers and negotiations, that's an important skill to have, like building out financial models that can help too, depending on what you're selling. Suggestions on where to move up if you don't want to be an AE. Great question. Not every SDR wants to be an AE. Like some of the companies that I was at, actually the first one was an SDR. I think we had a few people that went into like product marketing, or if you decide you want to do more on like the post-sale side, you could go into like customer success. That's a great path, or like technical account manager. So a few different paths there. And then, and if you want to be more technical, you can go also look at like the sales engineer path. Let's see. Got a degree in MIS, currently a startup as a customer success, looking to get SDR. How should you? Try to just do an internal transfer. Usually companies are pretty happy to do internal transfers just because they get a diversity of thought within the company. You get outside experiences. How are you building strong relationships remotely? You really have to like work on your small talk. So when you're remote with customers, you're not really having the opportunities to do lunches or talking like after the meeting, for example, in person. So it's I would say it's definitely a lot harder to do that remotely, but it's still possible. How do you move from being in software development to sales? The most direct path is moving to sales engineer path or solutions architect path. The software development experience can help, especially like if you're selling like a very, very technical product where having like that software development experience can help because you actually know how that tool might be used like in the real world. Do I have a LinkedIn? Yes, it's in my bio. Thomas Niviara. What are some skill sets that can complement long-term growth within tech sales? Great question. So I think right now as a rep, it doesn't hurt to be more technical. So getting relevant certifications are certainly helpful. The more self-sufficient that you can be, the better, I think, just because you're able to have better conversations with your customer. You're able to build more trust with the customer too. So that would be probably an area to focus on. Another one would be if you really want to up-level your game, understanding corporate finance and corporate structures can help. You can do some individual courses. You don't have to do like a full MBA, but you can take some individual courses. Like I did my MBA through the University of Illinois, the iMBA program. And they give you the option where if you don't want to do the full MBA, you can take individual courses. And if you don't even care about credits and you just want to take the course, you can do that, and they have them for free. They have them hosted through Coursera. Thanks. Awesome. You're awesome, man. Thank you for giving great info. Yes, happy to share. Do I think Launch Source is good? I haven't heard of Launch Source. Don't really have too much time to go into it, but send me a DM. I can check them out. No sales experience, only as a bookkeeper. How hard will the switch to tech sales be? So the first role is always going to be the hardest one to get. Sales development representative or business development representative. But I have a pinned video on my TikTok profile that tells you exactly what to look for, all the different filters that you should use. So it'll be, it's hard to get that first role, but definitely doable. So many openings right now. Is it easiest to get an SDR or SE role? Definitely easier to get SDR role. For the sales engineer roles, they typically tend to be more senior. Sometimes some companies will only have senior level sales engineer roles, whereas SDR is the entry level role. Did my background biomedical engineering help in any way in tech sales? It did, but in an indirect way. So within biomedical engineering, I took engineering classes from all the major engineering disciplines. So electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, tissue engineering, for example, and some computer science. So I didn't really go in depth in each one, but I had to understand them at a high level, understand how they fit together. So actually I see a very big parallel in terms of what you do in tech sales, where you're not necessarily a super product expert by any means, but you're responsible for understanding how the software works and how it integrates with the customer and understanding the customer's business model. So you're just doing a lot of problem solving, creative thinking. Is customer success still lucrative? Yeah, so at like the big companies, your pay is based on your level, not necessarily by like your title. So at Amazon, for example, if you're a level 6 customer success manager or a level 6 account rep, your base salary is going to be the same. The biggest difference is on the sales side, you have higher earning potential because you would have a higher commission or bonus, and you've got like accelerators and so on, but you can still make a lot as a customer success manager. Like at Amazon, for example, there's customer success people that are making a consistent, $300K a year at like the more senior levels. Hey, Tyler. Roles to look for when you're searching for jobs and where should you look? LinkedIn is where you're going to see most of them. Check it out on my profile. I pinned a post exactly what to search for the job entry-level jobs. And then you can also look at boot camps like Pre-Hired, Pre-Sales Academy. Those are my bio. Feel free to DM me if you want specific advice. Anyone know what a base salary would for a rep would be in Egypt? I'm not familiar with Egypt. So the $40K a month, that would be yearly. So for these entry level roles, at least within the States, it's 60 to 90,000 yearly. That's the average. About to graduate business management. What's the best way to get in the game? Networking. Get internships. Internships help a lot. Referrals. Referrals help a lot. What is the AWS sports department like? I don't work with them or haven't worked with them. I don't know if I know anyone there, but they do have like a lot of cool specific departments. I know like I'm on the automotive side, for example, and you get to go to like specific automotive, like big automotive events if that's what you're interested in. So I think with the sports team, they do, go out to the to games and stuff. On target to Q4 quota 1 month in. That's awesome. Yeah, I think this year was great, I think, for a lot of people because a lot of companies held back quota, and then they last year because of COVID, and then everything bounced back so quickly. So it's like relatively easy to knock out your number. Just getting an SDR role, what tips would you give for someone getting into the industry? Yes, biggest tip is I would say as a new SDR, make it a goal to get promoted relatively quickly. It's a role that you can get burned out in if you don't have a clear goal in mind. So set a goal of getting promoted within, let's say, 12 to 18 months. Make that clear with your manager. Ask them what specifically you need to do. How is your performance being measured? And then track yourself against it, and then set up like monthly calls with your manager just to talk about career progression. You have a discovery role play on Tuesday. Any tips, best practice on prepping? Yeah, I would say, don't try to make it sound like overly rehearsed, but ask a lot of questions. I think it's a little hard to do that sometimes with like role play situations, but ask a lot of questions, and then ask questions on top of the questions. So if they give you an answer, try to find like the why behind it. And customers will do this a lot. Like you'll ask them questions about their business, and they'll tell you that they do something a certain way, and then but you don't want to just leave it at that. You want to ask like, why is it being done that way? Because a lot of times, especially at like bigger, older companies, they just have a lot of processes in place that have been in place for like years, and people just haven't questioned it. From a client's perspective, what often makes or breaks a deal? So the financial piece is a big one. Like if they do an analysis and they find that the return on investment just isn't big enough, that's going to be a big one. What's the change management going to look like? Is it going to be easy to implement this software? Do we have like the resources to do it? Do we have the time to do it? That's a big make or break. And then another, make or break can even be their experience with the sales team. So the last thing that customers want is buying a piece of software and then like having all their contacts within like the company just drop off the face of the earth. They want to be supported. And when I was at one of the small startups, we won several deals specifically because they thought that we were more hands-on with them and we provided a better customer experience for them. Is there any way to join Unlock RepView without having a prior sales job to give a review? Not yet. I've given them that feedback. I've given Ryan and Darren that feedback who run RepView that they should do that, especially for like the SDR positions. I think they have it in their pipeline. Pros and cons of being a BDR versus at a larger company versus startup. I think most of the cons, I'd say most of the pros are on the larger company side. So at a larger company, you're going to have more sales training, more support. The sales teams are going to be bigger, so you're going to have more peers that you can work with and collaborate with. Usually the promotion ladder is more defined at larger companies versus at startups. Sometimes I've seen some startups where they don't actually do a lot of promotion of the SDRs or BDRs, and they actually end up churning through a bunch of them. Versus at larger companies, they don't really do that. Larger companies do not want to hire people just to have them be fired a year later. That's a losing proposition for them. Versus I've seen at some of the startups that I was at, they would fire people after like 3 months. And at a big company, you're not going to get fired for, I would say, at least 12 or 18 months of like very bad performance, unless like you do something unethical or illegal. When I think of Workday is great. Is tech sales better than consulting? I'm biased, but I think so. What level could you move into from PM to tech sales? It depends. If you're doing like an internal transfer, obviously like your level will mostly carry over. But that's the But if you're looking externally, it's a relatively hard move to make, just because if you're going to be looking at the more senior tech sales jobs, they're going to be looking at like prior quota attainment, prior experience with like large deals, customer experiences, which you're not necessarily going to get as a PM. Hey, Feet Switch. Rita, thoughts on team quota plans as an account executive? They can be, there's pros and cons. So with like a team quota, the pro is that ideally your quota attainment should be a bit more consistent, meaning you're not going to have like a really low quarter and a really high quarter. For the most part, it should kind of average things out. The con is, of course, that it does make it harder to accelerate or hit those accelerators and overachieve your numbers. And then I would say that's probably like the biggest con, just in terms of, do you want a more consistent commission check, or do you want the opportunity but also the potential risk to earn significantly more or less? What level is here we go, got some questions there. Best way to get referrals. I've got a few videos on that, but LinkedIn is great. You're going to try to like find people that have similar backgrounds as you that you can reference. Best undergrad major for tech sales. If you have to pick, computer science. What do you think next year will look like for tech sales and meeting quotas? It's interesting. It's going to depend. I think the market right now is an interesting place. The next month or two could be very bumpy. So I would say that answer is going to depend on what the rest of the year looks like. Talk about my venture angel investing. So I haven't done much. There's only been like one small angel investing thing that I did, and it was pretty recent, so I don't have a ton of experience to talk on there, but a few of my colleagues are into that space, so I just can't speak to it personally. What level is an account rep at Amazon? It ranges. It goes from level 4, which is entry level, to I think the highest that I've seen for an individual rep is level 7. And there's very few of those. I'm at a level 6 myself. Do you have any opinions on SDR positions at Databricks or Amplitude? So Databricks is super solid, one of the hotly anticipated upcoming IPOs. So if you had to pick between those two, I would do Databricks. Should you still want to apply to SDR roles that say they want 1 to 2 years of experience as a new grad? Yeah, still apply. A lot of the jobs will still say 1 to 2 years of experience, but they'll hire people with no prior experience. For BDR, does it matter what city you're physically located in? Mostly remote. Yeah, it's all mostly remote right now, but typically for BDR roles, they do tend to be office-based because they want you to be close to your manager for that coaching, be close to your peer for that feedback piece. What should your cover letter consist of? Is it necessary? Google doesn't require it. I haven't done a cover letter since I graduated, and I haven't had anyone ask me for a cover letter either, so you don't really see those on the tech side. How do you manage your pipeline as an SDR? I think the best way as an SDR is you really need to figure out how much activity you need to do on a daily basis and be consistent. That's probably the best way to manage your pipeline versus just trying to catch up at the end of the week or end of the quarter. Thoughts on SAP Sales Academy? Haven't looked at that one. FinTech hits different. Paid on book of business, compounding. Yeah, it's similar to cloud, for example. I have 2 accounts and I get paid on all of their spend on AWS, and it doesn't start from 0. So, pretty much like if I did nothing, like I'm still gonna hit like a 70 or 80% of my quota. Thoughts on healthcare software sales? Healthcare software, a lot of potential. The challenge there is hospitals don't like spending money on software and IT for the most part. They like, if something works, they're going to keep it for as long as they can. You need a job. Is that hiring? Let's see. Best advice for SDR making the jump from 550 to 500 line size to 501. I'm not sure what the line size means. What's the relationship between an AE and a sales engineer? You saw, have experience in both. Yeah, ideally they work very closely. The experience can vary on company. In my experience as a sales engineer, I was paired up 1-to-1 with an account executive or account rep, and I really like that because you can develop like a really good cadence on calls, identifying like who steps in where, and becomes very fluid. At the bigger companies like Google and Amazon, a lot of times the sales engineers will be managing multiple account reps, or they might be like in a pod model where they're like a pooled resource. So in those, you don't have as much of a relationship that's made between the AE and sales engineer. But the overall difference, right, is the sales engineers focus on just like the technical aspect of the sale. They spend a lot of time doing the proof of concept, doing the trial. Just started a company called Blackbot as a mid-market AE. What can you expect in that role? Blackbot. I don't know if I've heard of that one, but mid-market, what you're going to expect is, if you've were in the SMB space before, longer deal cycles, more complex. You're going to be more involved with like procurement and contracting. Just got a BDR role, EdTech company. Congrats, man. That's super exciting. EdTech is great right now. Thoughts on Samsara, currently interviewing, coming out of medical device sales. Let's see. I don't know if I've heard of Samsara. So that's the thing. I've been in this industry for a while, and especially on like cloud side, I'm selling into a bunch of different companies, and I still will run across companies I've never heard of, and it just kind of shows you how much growth potential there is within the software space, because there's just so many companies, and you would think like that there wouldn't be that many, that they would be like kind of stepping on each other's foot, but there's just that much business potential out there. It's insane. You want to travel? How is that in tech sales? If you like to travel, there can be plenty of opportunities. So I would say before COVID, I would be traveling like every other week or something for like a day or two. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes less. The amount of travel you do will depend on the company and the territory. So at like the FinTech startup, for example, I cover the entire US. So some days I'll be flying out to New York. Other times I'll be flying out to like LA, did like Dallas, Chicago, and a bunch of like smaller cities too. And then, flying out to conferences, you'll definitely go to those. And then, but yeah, it'll depend on the territory and stuff. But if you do want to travel a lot, it can be great. I know a lot of sales reps do enjoy travel, so they'll end up like booking their travel where they'll arrive like a day, a few days earlier, take some time off, do things personally, and then of course, like your flight and everything is paid for, so it makes it relatively cheap. Excited to finally start a career in sales. Yes, that's awesome, exciting. Glad to see how much attention tech sales has been getting. But to be fair, when I first heard about it, when I was like in college, I completely wrote off sales, and I had all of the wrong misconceptions. Switching from Europe to US as an AE, have any friends that did it? Yeah, actually, when I was at Google, there was two people that I know that they relocated from the Ireland office to actually Austin, where I was at. So they did it. They enjoyed it. They got a pay bump actually moving from Europe to the US, which was great. How is AWS go-to-market organized among technical teams and sellers? Yeah, so the go-to-market, it varies based on segment as well. So I'm within like global and strategic accounts. So and then I'm within the automotive segment. So we have some specific automotive BDs. We have specific automotive sales specialists for various AWS products. And then, of course, each account has their dedicated sales rep. They have their dedicated solutions architect. Oftentimes, there's multiple because they're covering these are very big companies that we're selling into. So you've got multiple reps covering different parts of the business. Then you'll have customer success managers, technical account managers, typically like an enterprise concierge. But in terms of go to market, there's also a big partner sales channel too. So then there's a partner sales manager that you'll work with. What was my prior experience before getting into tech sales? My prior experience on the corporate side was technical support, and then I moved into an inside sales role within that company. Do I sell software to companies or hardware devices to companies? I did both. I used to sell hardware in the test and measurement space. Now I just sell software. Thoughts on credit card processing sales? It could be great. I prefer sales where it's not as transactional and it's larger deal sizes. From what I've heard on the credit card processing side, especially if you're targeting like smaller businesses and restaurants, it's just more transactional. 150K realistic within 3 years starting as SDR? Yeah, absolutely. If you can get promoted to inside sales, I would say you could probably get 2 promotions within 3 years if you know what you're doing. You can get promoted from SDR to inside sales within like a year and a half, and then inside sales to like an SMB AE, another year and a half. And at that point, yeah, 75-75 split for 150K OTE, definitely very realistic. What's the typical market comp for brand new BDRs, MCOL market? So it's like 60 to 90K, and it varies quite a bit within companies. And then like at the top companies here, this is for this is actually within like the SMB space. Actually, that's why you can see base and OTE. But yeah, 60 to 90,000. Do I still do any of my own prospecting? I do, not a ton, mainly because I have like the executive relationships. But there are like parts of the business that we haven't sold into yet. So that's where I do some of the prospecting there. How do you overcome price objections? Great question. So the way that you overcome it is you try to take the conversation away from price and focus on value instead. Anytime you try to like focus on pricing and discounts, sometimes it's like a race to the bottom. And so instead you want to focus on building value instead. So if the customer is asking for like a discount, try to make sure that they understand all the value that they're getting, and then see if there's like stuff that you can add, for example, to build value that way. Best just hired as an SDR. Best feedback is work closely with your sales manager. Ask them specifically, what do you need to demonstrate to show that you're ready to move up, and then hold them to it. Set a goal. Tell them that what your goal is to get promoted in, like, let's say 12 months. Ask them what accomplishments do you need to hit to show that you're ready. What types of jobs do you need to search for to get into this type of field? So sales development representative or business development representative. Look on my profile, TikTok profile. I have a pinned post that shows that. Looks like we're coming on time. I'm gonna do a few here, and then as you can see, I'm feeling a bit sluggish today. So normally I would go maybe a little bit longer, but the time flies by. I get so many questions. We're just like talking nonstop here. This was great. Really enjoyed all the questions. Again, I'm gonna post it today, the recorded TikTok live on my YouTube. That's on my profile. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to message me. I respond to pretty much every DM that I get. It might take me a few days, potentially even a week sometimes if I just get backlogged with a bunch of things, but I will get to your questions. I really enjoy helping as many people as I can. And then for people that really have no experience, and have been kind of like stuck and trying to get in, but haven't been having luck, that's when I would recommend, you could take a look at a program like Pre-Hired or Pre-Sales Academy. That one's in my bio too. Let's see. So when is the next Clubhouse room? Yes, I'll do Clubhouse on the next one, and I'll do it at the same time as this one. I didn't do it for the last two. I switched devices, and I just didn't get Clubhouse set up on the other one. But great. Thanks everyone. Great questions. And then again, this was sponsored by RepView. I'm not sure what was going on. The green screen keeps on going away, but RepView, great source for tech sales compensation information. So check it out. And then, I'll see you guys next week. Have a great night and great rest of your week.